It's been a long winter break, ladies and gentlemen, but we are back in 2019 with WCS Winter. Welcome back. It's good to have you guys, and I hope you're all ready for some StarCraft. My name is Fear Dragon, and I am joined here at the desk by the one and only In Control. How's
Hello.
it going?
It's good. I'm glad to do this. This is how my year starts. The other part of January was all building up for this moment right here now.
Was there even another part of January? This is the only part of January that matters.
No, I'm actually in cryostasis the entirety of January, and they wake me up like Mark whispers in my ear, goes, "Jeff, it's time." And I stand up and I go, "Let's cast some WCS. Let's do it."
I can dig it.
That's how I do it.
Well, if you're not familiar with WCS Winter, there are a bunch of changes that actually recently happened with it. So this is going to be a little bit different than Challenger, and WCS Winter is one of those new things that we're kind of doing. So this is a bit of a different format. We got 32 players, and they're going to all be in these groups. Now, of course, only half the players are going to make it to the next stage. From there, there's going to be a round robin, and from there, the top 6 are going to make it to an offline finals, where we're going to be doing that here, and it's going to be a lot of fun. But I'm pretty excited about this format. It's a bit different than we usually see.
It is, and I know that for a lot of people it was a little bit alarming to change things up. Change is bad for some people, but I kind of enjoy the different format as well, and honestly, Leipzig was nice last year, but it felt a little early. So later in January and having this pushed out into, I think it's even March, right?
It goes all the way
April?
or April, I think, almost.
So it's a little bit of a longer stand. We're going to get to develop the story, see these guys compete. And one of the things we were talking about, we'll talk more about it too, but a lot of people qualified for this tournament that aren't even your regular Challenger players typically. So this is it's nice. We'll see some new faces.
Yeah, we get a lot more players that actually get to qualify, and of course it is for the Americas and also the European region. But all these players for each one of these regions, I want to note, is going to be playing for about $60,000, with first place being awarded $12,000. Even last place, the players getting knocked out today or tomorrow, etc. in the group stages, still going to be walking away with a roughly $675.
Is it still first place if Cyril's guaranteed to win it? Like
oh, but we got the Americas region, so that one.
But Europe, right?
Europe, you know, it is a little bit tougher.
He did qualify for Europe, as you can imagine.
Yeah,
he'll be there.
I'm actually a really big fan, though, of the tournament format for the finals. For those who don't know, like I'd recommend like go checking out Liquipedia or something to go see that, because that actually does potentially, if Cyril just wins all of his matches and never drops a map, he'll just end up in the finals. It's not even a problem.
Okay.
Yeah. But let's take a look at that schedule, because we got a bunch of really great matches going on today. We have uThermal, Goblin, as well as Bly and Rail, all in a group, and this is the typical WCS group where we're going to have first 2 matches play out, the winners of each of those matches will play, the losers of each of those initial matches will play, and then we have that decider match to see who's going to be the final player to advance out of the group.
Yep, there's a reason why this is kind of your typical group structure. It is nice. Perhaps we've seen it a lot, but like I said, there's a reason for that. I'm excited for these players too. We have Rail, who's been a bit of a grinder, formerly known as Verdi. He's a Russian Protoss player who's done pretty well for himself in the past, but is finally having a chance at a tournament crack. And then Goblin, he's either 16 or 17. Oftentimes with these young players, they get younger as time goes on. It's like, I think he's 9 years old, this guy. Yeah. But Rotterdam, a big fan. I'm sure he's watching right now. And this could be a tough one for Mr. Rotterdam, because he's going up against uThermal, who is the pride of Amsterdam, I think is what they call him. That's his nickname.
Yeah,
that's can't enter the lobby, by the way, so we might have to.
Yeah. Our first match is going to be uThermal versus Goblin. So I'm so glad we get to actually see Goblin. Goblin had some great performances. He's playing some online tournaments, just dominating his groups there. Has been doing so well, I would say, the past couple of months. And uThermal is the guy who doesn't need an introduction, right? He's like the old school player. He's been around, playing for Team Liquid, been here for ages, versus this like up-and-comer who has been around in the scene, but never really got the big results.
Right. And the thing that's really fun for me here in January and as our first WCS stop of 2019, I like seeing where these guys are at. uThermal was having a bit of a resurgence last year. I know that there was kind of ups and downs. There's moments where it felt like he was talking about switching races or doing some weird stuff, but he obviously had some really good results. But this year, I don't want to jump the gun too much, but Terran, I think, is in a more healthy spot. At least it feels like their emotional state is better this year. They have more tools at their disposal. And uThermal is that guy that is considered probably the best European Terran and one of the best non-Koreans. We'll see the other one, I guess, special later today. But I'm excited. Is he top tier still, or is he going to get kind of messed up here by the Young Buck?
It's a good question, too, because I know a lot of the Terrans have been struggling a little bit more on the most recent patch. We've definitely heard some of their voice concerns, especially from players like uThermal, etc. But I know that Goblin has actually been feeling very confident about his chances. He was actually feeling really good about his chances versus uThermal. He's been practicing a lot versus the other two, like Bly and Rail. So I really actually do think that Goblin has a very solid shot at upsetting here.
I would have to agree. Production, we're just gonna have to go without me because I would have to log out of this and then not have the login to get back in. So I have to explain this all right now, but it's just frozen. So
I did hear that they changed the logins too, so I can't help you with that.
Yeah. Okay. I'm excited to get this underway. Let's do that kind of silly thing. Predictions. Do you think Goblin has what it takes? Because he's certainly the underdog, right? There's no way we can look at this and say, no, Goblin's going to be the favorite against uThermal. But does he have what it takes to beat uThermal?
Yeah, I mean, what have you actually been seeing in Protoss versus Terran? Because we got the new maps and we got the new balance patch. I watched like a lot of Nathaniel, so that's not really helpful in figuring out what TV
probably
meta
think
looks
Terran
like.
cannot win.
I'm like, you know what? Tempest? They just beat battle cruisers.
They're
what do you even
good.
do against them?
They're pretty good, yeah.
Uh-huh.
No, PVT's in an interesting spot. I would say as a Protoss player, a lot of people are going to be like, well, a lot of Terran players are going to be like, no, it's incredibly imbalanced in favor of Protoss. I think it's fun, and it's gotten to a fairly good spot where Terran do have some early game stuff that they can do. But uThermal was messing around a lot with mech, and mech is... It's always been that malign thing in StarCraft 2 where everyone wants it to work. We've seen some big results like MVP in the past, that kind of a thing, but it's especially hard in TvP. Right now, it's in a better spot. You can do it as like an alternative strategy, I suppose. And I feel like uThermal might do that here. He might.
Okay, well, I'm excited to find out. We are going to one of the older maps in the last ladder map pool. It is going to be Kairos Junction for game number 1. And I think the game is underway. And here we are. We're going to be starting down here in the bottom right-hand corner of the map, top of the liquid blue Terran player. He is uThermal.
What can Mark bring for us today? But in the top left-hand side, as the red Protoss, it's Goblin. Is his name actually? No, okay. So yeah, Mark called him Kobold. And I was like, that can't be his name. Looks like a dragon, I'm pretty sure. It's Leon.
Is it a dragon or is it like a type of dog or something?
A kobold? I mean, it could be. Like
I'm just used to seeing them in games and stuff, and I feel like they're like they're like part dog or something.
Oh,
I could be wrong.
What is a kobold? Yeah. Well, we'll have to find out afterwards. You and I have some Googling ahead of us. Both players kind of scouting around here. You'll notice the pathing of the probe a little bit anxious. Looking for the proxy. That is right. It is still the meta. Terran players are not afraid to put that barracks out. And in this location right here, this is more of a misinformation. So had Goblin gone right across the map and gone up that ramp, he would be worried about what he's scouting right now. As it is, that Reaper's not going to get there any faster than if it was at the ramp. You're just trying to kind of kick off the misinformation for your opponent.
Goblin gonna rally this probe around in the natural expansion. Not quite see that the barracks, so he's actually not even gonna be fooled. He's gonna think that the barracks is at home for a little bit. Finally moves up over here, sees the factory and says, oh, okay, this is gonna be one of those one base plays and your Reaper is gonna be somewhere out on the map, but I think when he sees the timing of it, he's gonna know, okay, you didn't do any crazy proxies.
It's really nice to scout that factory because with the factory at home, it's generally not going to be a true one-base play in the sense that you're not getting super mega all-in. It still, of course, can happen, but very often that factory is for that standard mid-game normal harass. It could be Widow Mines, it could be Hellions, or it could be a Cyclone as more of a defensive stance. But again, if that factory's out on the map, you're like guaranteed aggression. So some players will even proxy the factory, but again close to the main base, to send that misinformation as well.
Well, SCV comes in, and even before the Reaper gets here, he already knows, uThermal is very aware that there is a Stargate follow-up over here. Warp Gate technology still not starting up just because the gas was only really started to get invested into that now, since he was saving up for that Stargate.
Well, I agree. Okay, there it is. I was going to say, it's one of those things where it's on a timer right now, so it made sense to not start it, but if it continues, it could be one of those weird mistakes. This Reaper's going to see, of course, a lack of saturation there, but that's a very fast second Nexus, so the idea that it's saturated is non-existent. Not going to get a kill here, though. Shouldn't get a kill here.
Yeah, and the Stalker's out now, so they can kind of double tag team this guy. Shut him down.
Hey, I'll tell you what, Rob.
Good morning, Jeff.
But yeah, exactly. What is it? What is it without starting off with a comment like that? But the Reaper does get away, and of course, as the game goes on, the function of the Reaper is just basically to do another suicidal dive in and kind of see what that tech might be. But with the Stargate scouted, I think uThermal's got to feel pretty good about what's going on back at home. He does have that Cyclone out off that tech lab, and he's going off and adding another tech lab. So there's the barracks, and I think it'll swap with that Starport.
Or Starport's flying over to... There's another tech lab going down there.
Yeah.
I guess he just really wants to start stim a bit faster, and the Phoenix is going to scout out where all the add-ons are.
Love this from Goblin. So it's a very, very... Oh, he canceled it with that. That's actually kind of cute. So he shows up. Now, obviously, the single Phoenix represents 0 aggressive possibilities, but it's going to get a full scout here. And the other nice thing about this, too, is that it's really common to have cloaked Banshees. And if you open up Stargate, one of the worst nightmares is a cloaked Banshee just shows up in your mineral line. It shouldn't, right? You should find it middle of the map. You should have an Oracle out. These are the kinds of things that can happen, but Goblin's skipping that. He's going into Robo right now, but with that early scout, I find it very hard to believe that uThermals are like, you know what, I'm still going to do it.
Yeah, with more Phoenix being added on, I really wonder, are we going to see the Twilight Council come down? Are we going to see that return? I think we have seen a little bit of a return
Phoenix
of like
Colossus.
the Phoenix Adept or Phoenix Colossus, yeah.
Phoenix Colossus has been a little bit more in style. Phoenix Adept is something that I mean, I'm sure somebody's doing it, but I haven't seen a whole lot.
You know what, I think about it, I'm like, was that a rail game? Because that's not indicative of the meta.
If it's weird, it's probably in that department. Getting some nice pickups here, though. And again, good scouting. The other the nice thing about Phoenix is that you always know what your opponent's doing. So he's absolutely aware that it is going to be bio. I was talking about mech play earlier. You're going to have to hold your horses. If we do get that mech play, it will not be, well, it would be weird if it was in this game. That's a wall off. You can't get in there. You know what? Nade yourself over it. Could you?
I think he can.
Wouldn't that be amazing? Very Quake of it.
That'd be a nading.
Oh, wow. Okay,
So
that
was a bit of a stretch.
that's a tough one.
I'll get better ones.
All right, I believe it.
It is going to be that
Can't get
robotics.
worse.
Yeah, that's the bright side.
Yeah.
That's the optimist in you. Robotics Bay is down, so it is likely going to go into that Phoenix Colossus down, like you were talking about. And do you feel like just seeing that there aren't that many gateway units is much of a reveal? The Reaper was able to stay alive for such a long time.
Yeah.
It keeps scouting the composition at the front door.
It does, and that has been nice. It's also very importantly, as we kind of, let me see the timer here. Where are we at?
5 minutes and 6 minutes now?
Okay, so a early-ish third Nexus is around 5 to 6 minutes. As time goes on, that Reaper being alive and spotting that there is no attempt at a third becomes pretty critical. Because a 2-base Phoenix Colossus type of build is very different from just a third Nexus. I have 2 or 3 Colossus and I'm defending. We'll have to see if he does get the formation.
Oh, this is a really nice snag. Being able to kill off that medevac and also seeing, wait a second, you only just have a few Marines in your main base. I know that the push is coming now.
Yep. And he's getting some pretty significant kills here as well. Good tank count here, though. And the Colossus is only just now coming out, but I believe it doesn't have range, if you want to correct me.
No, it does not. Thermal Lance has not even started just yet. Shield Battery's trying to come down. Cancels one of them. They're a little too far forward. Colossus can try and pick away a little bit at this, but it's going to take so much damage without that range upgrade.
It's going to have to be the Phoenix picking things up. They're going to jump on top of this right now. 2 tanks, 3 tanks, all picked up. There's the Colossus trying to focus down on top of the Marines. But the Phoenix are getting whittled away. The Colossus taking massive damage. He's going to have to back up. The Immortal still stands. But with the tank count remaining at 2 of the 3 that originated here, and now the bunker finishing, this is beginning to look awfully sloppy for Goblin.
This is a pretty tough spot for Goblin, but I will say he did kill off a lot of the Marines. Now we have to wait for a couple of reinforcements here. The Colossus stayed alive as well, but like you said, the bunkers are such a massive problem here. He doesn't really, besides the Immortal, there's not really a whole lot here to actually try and break this.
No, it's the 2 Immortals. I mean, with the Phoenixes having died, they still have enough to... I mean, the other thing here, too, is that was a good... We're down to 5 Phoenix. It was like 9.
Yeah.
So we lost quite a few. He's trying to cut off reinforcements, but again, the problem there is he's actually adding more Phoenix. But now the tank count is starting to hit the shield barriers, starting to get on top of actual probes mining the minerals. And that, I mean, look how dug in uThermal is, by the way. It's a missile turret, it's another bunker. If this all finishes, I don't see it getting cracked. It's going to be tough.
All right, +1 weapons starting up over here for Goblin because I think he's just realizing I got to spend my money somewhere. He doesn't exactly have that many gateways. He's just at 3 right now. So it's all just about that Colossus production and whatever you can make with these Phoenix happen.
Yeah. And it's not much, as you can see here. They're trying to intercept reinforcements. Maybe they get that medevac. That would be nice.
Are there any medevacs out? No, he's been able to snipe off every medevac. And that is pretty nice because it makes those stims a lot more difficult to try and do.
And I love uThermal's response to that. Okay, I don't have medevacs. Well, everyone's in a bunker. I mean, that's the 5th bunker right there about to finish. There's actually not enough Marines to get in there, but as they die, he can fall back. It's got to be a fake shade, but I mean, look at the forces kind of showing up here for Goblin. If you look at the production tab, it's more Phoenix. Is Phoenix the right answer right here? I mean, go ahead and pick up the tanks. What kills everything else?
I mean, what do you do as a Protoss player in this situation? He still hasn't gotten Thermal Lance, which, I don't know, maybe that's something.
It's got to be a mistake at this point. He's got 3 Colossus, Ruby.
Yeah.
3 Colossus without range. And now the tank's starting to shoot in there.
I wouldn't hate it like a Warp Prism at least. If he's going to try and break this, he's got to come in from multiple angles, right? Because if he just comes in through that one natural expansion point, it's going to be so difficult to break. But I guess it's difficult to break no matter what.
Yep. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I mean, especially without range. With range, maybe he kills a front tank or 2 and then can start ranging on the bunkers, but he doesn't even have that. I don't see that. It's going to finish. He's coming forward here. The Adepts do shade in. They're on top of the forts. The Immortals trying to get on top of the tanks. Their shields are remaining pretty strong. Here comes the Phoenix, and they are picking up the remaining tanks. It is just Marines inside of bunkers. Both the Immortals do die, and now the missile turret's walloping on top of the Colossus. And I gotta say, Ruby, if he had range, this would look okay for him. He's sitting back, he's hitting the bunkers, he's not getting hit in return. But as it is, he's got to take damage each time. That's
so tough. Exactly what you're saying. Without the Siege Tanks there, the Colossus could easily whittle away at these bunkers, but that's suddenly not an opportunity. And finally, Thermal Lance starts up. Finally, also starts up some Disruptors.
Yeah. And Disruptors would have been nice, too, because he could have been doing that. Especially with the shield batteries, he could have been breaking the siege
Taking
down.
away at it.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, well now finally we have the 3rd base finishing up here for uThermal. So this is the ultimate timer for Goblin. If he does not do something soon, he will just actually be knocked out of the game.
Yep. Just under the sheer amount of income coming in for uThermal. You'll notice in that exchange, it is uThermal with that supply advantage, whereas they kind of went into it with like a 4 or 5 supply difference, which is almost nothing. But as you said, it's up to Goblin now. He's got to break out of here, but he doesn't have to just break out of here. He's got to kind of do it cost effectively. Now with Lance finishing and the tank count over here being reduced to, I think it's just a 1, it's definitely doable. 2 tanks.
2 now.
Well,
doesn't look like he's making any more siege tanks. He kills off a bunker, softens up the missile turret. The problem is, it's like you said, he needs to break this contain, and then he needs to be able to push across the map and actually do something, because it's not like he can just sit back and be like, oh, cool, I'm like broken out of the contain. I can just expand and still be even. No, he's behind now.
Right. His worker count is down to 39 as well. Ugh. So you might get that missile turret, but as you said, this is a slow break. The cooldown between on these disruptors is just painfully slow. And uThermal is pretty happy to say, yeah, go ahead. Behind this, I'm upgrading. I'm getting more Marauders. I'm getting a 3rd base. A 2nd factory, it looks like.
Yeah, another factory coming on up. The Adepts are going to finally finish up that shade. He's going in. He kills off those siege tanks very quickly. Colossus working away at the bunkers rather than the Marines, and I think he will finally be able to break through.
Yeah.
But funny enough, uThermal still escapes with a lot of Marines and most of his medevacs, so he still has a force to try and defend a counterattack.
Now, the only thing that gives me pause here is that it is still 3 Colossus and 2 Disruptors. Now, I'm not going to tell you it's the better army, but if he hits a couple of massive disruptor shots, this army can get pretty dicey pretty quick. What concerns me is I don't think he has a Warp Prism over here. I think he's just going for it. He feels the desperation.
Yeah, it kind of has to. And the Siege Tanks also siege up in a position. He's going to be able to snipe off one of the Disruptors. Ooh, that's not the shot he wanted either.
No, he almost got both the tanks, and had he done that, maybe we find an argument for that being worth it, but as it is, no, absolutely not. And he's going to try to find an angle over here. You cannot allow a concave of medevaced Marauders in particular. This tank says, you know, I'm going to go scout here.
Yeah. I mean, the production tab does a lot right now. He finally does have that Warp Prism. He's getting in another round of Adepts. The Adepts are the only really thing that he actually has going for him right now, which is he can shade into the siege tanks so that they don't just whittle away at his army as he approaches. Here we go. Siege tanks being lifted up, and those Phoenix are going to be taken care of pretty quickly. The Adepts holding the line for a good bit of time. The Colossus are still staying alive as well, so they're doing okay, but now that the frontline buffer is gone, even though uThermal's the one backing up, he knows he's got victory.
Yeah, it's kind of funny the way that fight happens. Adepts and Colossus very good at killing Marines, but pretty bad at killing Marauders. And as the upgrades are kind of ticking in, and the medevac count, which you pointed out, was at one point at like 0 or 1. At that point was at 6 or 7. And Marauders getting that kind of healing power just do not die. And that's why Goblin decided to tap out there. But an interesting game. I thought Goblin was doing incredible work with his Phoenix. It was looking really good for him. But then he just got... I mean, that army of uThermal was like, nope, I'm going right here. I'm locking in, and to fight me is to fight expensively for you, actually.
That's always really, really a tough game, because I feel like that's one of those games where it's a confidence breaker. You jump in, you're like, okay, I'm 16 years old. I can finally play in a lot of these WCS events and everything. I'm hit the age. This is my year. I'm looking really good. And then that's your first game, and you're like, okay, I'm just in this losing position. I'm doing so many things right, but I still end up losing after 5 or 6 minutes of just being contained. Yeah. That's like not a great start for your confidence.
It could, yeah, it definitely could go that way. What uThermal did is a little bit in the meta right now. A lot of Terran players are doing that kind of blockade and making it tough for Protoss players that way. So I feel like there's the chance for Goblin to be like, no, that was just a good response to what I did.
Yeah.
But to your point, and that's the kind of funny thing, not even funny, but fun thing about this, we don't know. Goblin is a young guy. He's been playing a lot of online cups, and that's kind of where he's cut his teeth and got his chops. But I believe this is his first... Did he make challenge? I don't know. I should be on the spot. We don't know. I don't know if he was in Challenger last season, but the point is, this is a pretty big deal for the young guy, and he's facing one of the favorites. That's a tough first draw as well. So does it make him nervous? I don't know. We'll see.
Okay, well, game number 2 is getting loaded on up. We're going to Port Alexander for our second map. Should be a fun one. The last game, we definitely saw like the Phoenix Colossus thing. I know we were talking a little bit about that. We didn't get to see it in full form of how we usually see it just because he got contained, but do you feel like it's one of those things that you can just say like, I can just go for this every game, doesn't matter if my opponent sees it coming? I mean, obviously did a little bit there, but
I do. I don't know that I would do that again against uThermal, because the nice thing about it, and we saw that a little bit with the Phoenix, Terrans can get a little bit sloppy where a medevac kind of goes too far forward and dies for free. You're losing some Marines, you're losing SCVs. Other Terran players, and the nice thing about that Colossus and Phoenix composition, they freak out. They're missile turrets everywhere. They get defensive. They're like, well, I'm going to slow down and take a third. And then it plays into the Protoss's hand. uThermal had just such a great response of, no, I'm on 2 bases, you're on 2 bases. I'm not afraid of them pushing across. Good luck breaking a bunch of bunkers. I do think there was a mistake, though, with the lack of thermal lance. I don't want to make it sound entirely like what uThermal did is the hard counter to what Goblin did. With thermal lance, I do feel like that siege breaks a lot earlier, and who knows, it could have been a different game.
Okay, Port Alexander, map number 2, as said before. We'll see what both these players are going to be up to, and of course, you also mentioned that is still a little bit of a proxy meta, so we could still see some shenanigans out of uThermal.
Why not? He's got the 1-0 lead in this best of 3. It is just the opening match, though, so the loser of this will have to fight for their tournament life. Yeah, this is the thing. Go like have fun, Leonidas now. And now there is no dog creature named Leonidas. This is
Leo is a dog name though.
Yeah, but come on, Leonidas.
That would be a great name for like a guard dog or something.
You think so?
Like a Spartan guard dog.
Little pit bull. Well, hey, production's gonna get really upset if we don't talk about who these players still are. In the top left-hand side, he comes from a place that makes chura. That's how you pronounce it. Are you proud of me, Europe? You should be. It's uThermal. Mark Schlappy.
Not so sloppy in that last game.
Oh my God.
Starting down here in the bottom right. Come on, that's the easy go-to joke.
But it's not sloppy, it's schloppy.
I know. I said it wasn't sloppy.
Okay.
Starting down here in the bottom right, we have our red Protoss player going for the kind of more interesting natural expansion wall-off. It is Goblin.
Goblin's from Poland, I believe.
Infinity Gaming.
Right?
I don't think it's Poland. I forget the... No? I actually forget the country, though.
Right.
Like, I looked this up right before the broadcast, and I'm like, you know what? I don't remember anymore.
Someone will let us know. Yeah. Someone will tell us.
Someone will always tell us when we're wrong, Jeff.
Now, this base design here.
I'm actually not sure about... So, normally, we'll end up seeing sometimes Protoss players saying, like, hey, let's go for the wall off over at the front in case there's like a Hellion opening or something. Sometimes you can be a bit clever and try and wall off versus Reapers, and you don't have to do that on this map.
Yeah.
This one, the Cybernetics core positioning is kind of throwing me off a little bit.
I'm not going to lie. I looked at this, and in my caster arrogance, I was like, you know what? Let me take a couple of minutes to explain this. And then I looked at it, and I was like, instead, I'm just not going to say anything, because I don't get it. It might be for Hellions, I guess.
So what I think is that the gateway is, I think he's going to start to wall off versus Hellions and just cut off some of the area.
Oh, you know what?
And then
actually,
the
no, hang
Cybercore
on.
blocks off
I know
this area.
I know the answer. I mean, you're talking about the Cyber Score. Maybe it's that. But the actual answer is that they slowed down the build time of the Adept by, I think, 3 seconds. And someone actually said this. If you put the gateway on the lower ground, it, like, negates that. Because the whole idea is that this Adept gets out either early enough to stop this Reaper, or it gets over there and is actually a threat to the building SCV as well.
Yeah, the Reaper does keep him pinned back for a little bit, though, so he doesn't actually get that opportunity. Normally when you're talking, what Jeff is talking about is you're going for the kill on the SCV building the command center. You can kill that off, delay the command center for a bit, and just kind of make the Terran player feel a little bit uncomfortable. But
yeah,
uThermal gets away with it with the Reaper kind of pushing forward.
The Reaper does die here. And here comes the Adept. And it does see that Hellion, by the way. And it's really great to spot that Hellion, because at this point in time, you'll notice none are more being made. But if it's not spotted, it's almost certainly going to have more joining it.
Yeah, it does some damage and actually gets a Stalker across the map as well. So the Hellion is kept back for a bit. Like you said, there's no more Hellions coming out behind this. And the Adept is going to go down, but he's going to get a Hellion and a Marine for it.
Yeah. And kind of importantly, he also sees the Widow Mine. That's also a big tell. The Widow Mine at this timing typically means you're not getting dropped. It's more of a defensive opening. So if you're doing a Stargate, which we do see from Goblin, by the way, so you asked this question earlier, is he going to just do the same thing again? It kind of looks like he is. You add Thermal Lance in there, it's a pretty darn good composition. But he should also be fairly well informed on the fact that it looks like uThermal's not thinking to be too aggressive, at least in the classic way, with like a Medevac and Widow Mines or Hellions.
Okay, in the meanwhile, uThermal getting up his siege tanks, keeps that Viking alive, and actually spotted out that first Phoenix as it came in to scout, similar to the last game. So uThermal probably also has a pretty decent idea, like, okay, this is going to be the case. But he throws down a much faster third base this game, so his reaction is going to be a little different.
Yep. And I love the change of pace from uThermal. It may or may not work out, but I just still like that he's mixing it up here. Phoenix, though, so no, we don't literally see the third CC. But Goblin's a very good young player, and he might find his way in there. And if he gets that information, that's huge. So he sees the third CC. He sees the lack of, obviously, scary offensive tech. And now he's at a crossroads. Does he take his own third Nexus? It looks like he will. Because the other thing you can do when you're already heading to Colossus, sure, throw down 6 gateways. No upgrades. Colossus or 2, with or without range, and go. And it's a very hard push to hold. But he's not going to do that.
Just throws down his third base, gets up as a robotics bay regardless, because that is still a bit of a part of his plan. And Viking moving back over here. Looks like uThermal just wanted to get some scouting information. He's going to see the third base, which is a pretty big reveal.
The land is, I would call, ambitious. I do love the scout.
What does the land actually do? Is he trying to kill a probe that's transferring?
Yeah, and this is like a level of tryhard that we haven't seen in a while. But you know, it's WCS, first stop. I like it.
Well, actually, he's going to avoid the Phoenix, so I guess that also works.
Well, avoid is a weird word for it. Now the Phoenix just parks above you. And a single Stalker, I'm sure, is trundling its way over here.
Yeah, but you know what, Jeff? If you could get back an extra, like, 5 minutes, if you could get up another minute of your life, wouldn't you make that trade?
Well, I would have just flown out there. The second I was at one shot, I would just be like, I'm heading home. And then Minx is like, nah, I want you to land and sit by the third. Why? Maybe we'll kill an SCV. Seems kind of silly. Anyways, there's that uThermal Lance.
Oh, uThermal Lance.
Jeez Louise, you guys.
Oh, I thought that was a pun. I was contemplating it.
I mean, it's just, I don't know. My brain's on StarCraft right now. I'm excited. I'm happy to be here. It's great. We got Nate in the back room, you guys. He's caffeinating. He's talking about pizza. And then later broadcasts, we got Zombie Grub here too.
Would you say that Nate is on a decaffeinator?
What?
Actually, that would decaffeinate him, not recaffeinate him.
Is 2019 the year that your puns sink even lower? Have they gotten even worse?
I'm waiting for Blizzard to just get rid of me. Like, I'm trying really hard, guys.
Yeah.
I've heard your feedback. I'm doing my best, but it's up to them.
Well,
they got to pull the trigger.
Cornered the market on bad puns. It's all you. So this Phoenix composition, now, so I was going to kind of talk about this because I'm long-winded and I like the sound of my own voice. uThermal deciding on the faster third CC, I still stand by that I do like that, but I think the challenge with it is it gives a lot of time for the Phoenix to really develop. And now look at this Phoenix count. They get a medevac. This attack that's coming across the map, is it scary? I don't think so. And what Phoenix represent is you're on kind of a one-way trip a lot of times. You have a window to get back home, but if you don't, and that fight turns south, a couple of Colossus get on top of you, some charge lots or whatever, those Phoenix will erase everything. There's no retreat. So it's kind of a scary prospect when you delay your aggression.
Yeah, one of the scary things that sometimes happens with these compositions also is that the Phoenix, they look like they're really, really strong a lot of the time, and then you have that game where you run them straight over the Widow Mines, and you don't quite pick them up in time. You're like, oh, actually, I lose this game because I didn't pick up the Widow Mines in time.
Here it is. This is the thing that can happen. Well, maybe not.
He's trying to force him in
tank.
that direction.
He's gonna get a tank here.
Okay.
When you have so many Phoenix, you can kill tanks. You're in a good spot.
Getting sandwiched, but man, good control. I don't actually think that Goblin has lost any Phoenix so far. No. Really good game for him so far.
Yeah. And I mean, look at those numbers too. In the harass, he's lost under 200 minerals in value. He's killed over 1,200. That's what Phoenix can do for you. Now, uThermal does go across the map, threatens aggression, and does pull back in time. Oh, wow. Goblin. This is something that I didn't think was really possible until, I think it was BlizzCon 2016 when Showtime was doing it. But Phoenix, Colossus, and Storm, Phoenix in particular, are really hard to make good after Storm comes out. It's very often you like just tell them to follow something. If you can make them still good, that'd be great. Make them good, by the way. I'm a really good speaker. Oh boy.
No, it's a difficult composition to pull off just because it requires so much kind of fine-tuned control. I also love that he's been able to keep up on those upgrades during all this. The Colossus definitely benefit quite a bit from those upgrades, and he is going to go up to his fourth Colossus. Not
double Thor. Double Thor.
Oh my god, you know what? uThermal, he read the patch notes. He's like, you know what, Thor?
That's the
have
answer.
That extra range. These Terran players saying we can't get up these Thors. uThermal's going to do it.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to see how it works out.
He's even getting the
oh,
weapon
man.
Oh god, this is literally the moment we're talking about.
And he actually saves both the Widow Mines too. Now the Phoenix count, he's down to 4, and they're deep red as well. This army composition like really switches here. Unfortunately for uThermal, he hasn't been making Vikings. That's not his answer. So it still is going to be those Thors. It still is going to be just straight bio power. But with the Phoenix count depleted, if you look at that production tab, there are no more Phoenixes being queued up. So the idea is kind of, wow. I'm just going to stop. No, he's making more Phoenix. But 4 Thors. And he's making 3 more. It's actually mass Thor.
That is kind of amazing. This is like a this isn't quite a transition to mech. This is like biomech.
We got to get Nate out of the back room. Explain this.
Just swap him in for me. Yeah.
Terrans are being so snide about Thors too. I guess I should hold my comments until after this fight, right? Like if it works, it's great, but
Goblin did, I think, just notice all the Thors with his observers, so he's starting up some Immortals instead of the Colossus now, feeling comfortable at that 4 count. But look at the range on those Thors. They do hit the Colossus from a good range. Remember, those Colossus are air units.
Well, Ravi, I happen to know it's range 11, which in StarCraft terms translates to Tempest. It's very good.
That is a good way of putting it. Okay, well,
he can't do it. You can't fight.
Yeah, I don't think Goblin wants to actually go in. Okay,
I mean, he might think he wants it, but Ravi, he doesn't want it. He doesn't want it. Don't do it.
He's going to try for it. The Thors are at the front line, so they are getting taken out first right now. Storm zoning out a lot of the bio. The Colossus are staying alive despite all this, and there's only, what, 2 Thors left over? The Storms, they're doing a lot. Does the Force survive?
It looks like actually Goblin is able to turn the tide here. More Thors behind, surprisingly so. Now, what's really important here for Goblin is that all the Colossus, I believe, are still alive. I don't think he had a 5th.
No.
Even as a couple of Immortals mixed in, he's going to push forward. The range of those Thors could be problematic, but what a good fight for him so far. Did he overstay his welcome, though?
Thors are going after not the Colossus or anything. They're actually not close enough for that. The command center is getting awfully low on hit points now. Goblin even just denying this base from some mining time is nice, because he does have a lot of bases on the south and right-hand side of the map.
Taking a 5th base even behind this. I want to point out something that I thought you said that was very good, Ravi. You talked about how the Thors were at the front of that fight. That's absolutely not where they want to be. They were kind of trying to do this like, you know, snipe effect. They were trying to get early shots in, and that was all fine and good, but then he left him there. And when the Zealots and Immortals were putting their damage on top of those Thors, yes, they were tanking, but they were dying quicker than they probably should have.
Yeah, it's kind of tough. And the snipe effect you're talking about, like a Thor doesn't really take much damage from a Psionic Storm, right?
No.
So it's fine to have that there to try and snipe off a High Templar or something, but they're slow. They're not going to be able to move to the back of the army very quickly, so you really have to just have them in position the whole time.
Supplies are fairly similar, though, I will say. It is, of course, this 20 supply advantage for Mr. Goblin. Thor count still pretty high, but I think as more charge lots come in, it's kind of interesting. Goblin added a lot of stalkers, actually, which I don't quite understand that.
We'll see how that works out. The Storms do hit a lot of the bio and the medevacs. The Thors are mostly the only thing that survives against that, but the Immortals going to make short work of those. Although Thors actually, I think it's in some ways almost a bad thing that the Thors target the Colossus first, because the Immortals just ravage them. Goblins
something like 4 or 5 Immortals in there, and to your point, they were just doing all of their damage. Absolutely good engagements from Goblin. I was not a believer in that first one. I thought that was going to be tough, but he landed some great storms. And with the Thor slightly out of position, probably a very favorable fight for him there. But then good army movement. One of the things that can be kind of scary is over-committing to that. He didn't do that. You talked about how he got the command center to lift, and he just kind of continued to take favorable fights. It's nice seeing a young player show that kind of patience, because that is one of the ways you can kind of separate a seasoned, good StarCraft 2 pro and someone that's kind of just starting, is they're just like, they got kill on the mine, they jump in there, and that bad fight turns against them, it can get really ugly. But Goblin showing some patience and tying up the series. Yeah,
it's going to be a bit of a confidence builder. And kind of to your point, Jeff, you were saying, like, sometimes I was saying, sometimes that first game when it goes really, really poorly, you can feel like things are just not going to go your way, that you're just kind of go out 0-4 or like 0-2 or have a really bad start to the day. But Goblin, like you said, really showing that that's not actually going to be happening for him.
No, and it's worth mentioning, uThermal is literally the top European Terran player. I mean, there's some other players coming up, and I hope we get to showcase that, and that's fun, but I think you still have to give it to uThermal, and at least until somebody else kind of has those results that we've seen from uThermal. So
yeah,
it is just the first group, and like you said, no one's going out 0-4 of these two guys at least, so that has got to be a nice little feeling. And to your point earlier, if that was a confidence rocker earlier, I'll tell you what, doing the same composition, getting the right upgrades, and then winning this soundly like Goblin just did, that's got to feel really good.
How do you feel about the Thor composition overall? Do you feel like it's something that could work with like those adjustments we talked about, or do you think it's one of those things where it's like, maybe steer clear of it in Game 3, this isn't quite working?
I mean, the brutal honest answer is I have not seen this response, especially since the change to the Thor. So I'm only speculating, which is kind of fun, and it's cool, and I think one of the things that uThermal does is he likes to mix things up, and he's one of those guys that likes to keep things kind of weird so that his opponent doesn't really know what's going on. I would say after seeing that game and Goblin's patience and the way he worked that fight, no, don't go the Thor. Don't do the Thor thing.
Goblin playing really, really well, and I think just the fact also I have to really compliment him on keeping those Phoenix alive, both in Game 1 and Game 2. Finally, he did take those 2 Widowmine shots that kind of hurt, but that was well after we saw him getting absurd amounts of good damage done.
Yep, and his Phoenix, he might even do it Game 3 here, actually, because it hasn't been the Phoenix that has been the issue in any of the games. Not to harp on it too much, but it was that lack of range on the Colossus in Game 1 that I think really kind of threw him off. But also maybe the Thor tech in Game 2 would be something that uThermal will kind of definitively be like, you know what, maybe I don't do that anymore. But we're heading into Game number 3 here, all tied up. And I'll tell you what, Goblin beating uThermal and putting him in that loser match would be a pretty big shocker, but it's like, it's the beginning of something huge. If uThermal were to lose, I mean, again, I'm getting way ahead of myself, but like, let's say Goblin wins and uThermal then goes out of this group. Nobody saw that coming. Nobody.
It's really funny. I actually do think that while I totally agree with you that uThermal is a clear favorite in this group, and I think that's like the way that most people will look at this, there are just like a lot of really interesting dynamics between all of these players where I feel like anyone is capable of beating anyone else in this group, but it's definitely like they're still more likely that uThermal ends up winning this.
Yeah.
But you know, like Goblin has been on fire lately. uThermal lost, I think, like 1-3 or something last time he faced either like Bly or something. Rail plays very weird, and he's been on the up and up. Like all these players have kind of been doing really well during that kind of winter break. So we'll see. It looks like uThermal's at least been hiding or maybe practicing some special styles, though.
This is Frozen again. I think we can give up on the dream and just get it started.
Yeah. The next map is going to be Year Zero, so we're finally getting to start to see some of those newer maps, Jeff. How have you been enjoying the new maps?
I love it. I think if I'm being brutally honest, I think they're a little bit too easy to cannon rush on.
Yes, new repugnancy. Oh, man.
Which is funny because they specifically changed the robo because they didn't like cannon rushes into robo play.
I know.
As prevalent as it was for a little while there, I guess. But some of these maps, there's like the entire main base has 4 cannonable spots.
And I feel bad because I'm like, I normally have to do 3 pylons to cannon rush you, but to wall off an area, I only have to do 2 now.
I know.
I'm like, I kind of feel bad for you.
And I'm like a fairly good, for an amateur basically, casual StarCraft 2 player, so I'm learning the cannon rush spots the hard way. It's not me doing it. I don't go out and study replays. I'm not watching tournaments. It's happening to me. And they'll show up early, and I'm like, this is a cannon rush. And I'll go to block it, and then they just go to another spot and cannon rush me there, and I'm like, oh, okay, well, that's fun.
Yeah, I think Gemini, or GGE Mini, as people like to call him, showed a photo on Twitter that I think in like the main base of New Repugnancy had something close to 12 or 13 different locations.
Yes.
It was pretty great.
Pretty funny.
Well,
all right, here we are in game number 3. Success and what?
Ardamantigi?
Yeah.
That sounds like a dog name.
You got it. That is a dog name. In the top left-hand side, the Flying Dutchman. It's the Blue Terran uThermal. Top 8, WCS Valencia and Montreal. Not a bad year.
Starting up here in the top right-hand corner of the map, we have our red Protoss player from Infinity Gaming. He is Goblin. His name is Leon.
Yeah.
So I guess Leonardo, I kind of get it.
Well, Leonidas.
Oh yeah, that was Leonidas, you're right.
Yeah.
I told you my new favorite thing I do to mess with Neeb, right?
No, what's that?
Is actually, he gets incredibly annoyed if you just call him Alexander.
What?
Like unreasonably
His actual
annoyed.
name?
Yeah, his actual name. You call him, not Alex, Alexander.
It's a great name.
I know.
Alexander the Great.
Very regal.
Yeah.
I know
he
why
like
he gets
that.
upset.
And now you're sharing it with thousands of people, so I'm sure
well, I mean,
really appreciates
last year I had my own other nickname that I gave him, so.
Well, you didn't give it to him. You just talked about it publicly.
That's
right?
true. It was a nickname already given to him in high school before. And I feel bad about that one, so I'm not even going to say it.
Well, it's Rotterdam's favorite clip from our Challenger broadcasts.
Oh, yeah, I remember
That's the power of a caster, man. I mean, think about Artosis. He used to call Greg Fields Hydra. Literally Hydra, which is like such a weird way to look at that name and come up with Hydra. But because he said that, that's who Greg was to a lot of people. Not Hydra, Hydra.
Yeah, I think I still say Hydra on accident, just because that's how I heard for so long.
Are we saying Hydra because it's an I at the beginning?
Maybe it just seems artistic. It's like I draw.
I'm like, how do you say intrinsic? Dan, he's like,
what was the word you mispronounced yesterday on
that
the
was
Pylon
so,
show?
He was saying unveil.
Unveil, yeah. Oh, that was
I had such a funny moment because that's my thing, is when someone mispronounced something that like glares out at me.
Yeah.
But the fun thing about him and Tasteless,
that was really well done, by the way. Nice.
Picks up the Reaper there.
Catching.
Him and Tasteless have such a great dynamic. Nick says wrong stuff all the time, and guys, I'm challenging you. When you watch the GSL, Dan will never call him out on it. Never. Nick could say the wrong thing 20 times in a row. Dan is such a good co-commentator; he'll never say it. Me, no. I'm a bad co-host. But I tried the first time he said, and I can't wait until they unveil this. I was like, you know what? We'll let it slide. Sometimes he's trying to say unveil. It's just weird. And then he said it a second and a third time, and I was like, Dan, it's unveil. And then he talks, and the part I love about Dan is he's like, all right, well, let's have a discussion about how I don't know that that's a word.
Yeah, it was a pretty great moment. Okay, we do have the same kind of opening here from Goblin. He's going for that Phoenix first. He follows it up with a second Phoenix, so it's not any kind of like weird fake out or anything. And this game, uThermal is going to go for, it looks like the setup for a Widow Mine drop, because he did get out those first 2 Widow Mines.
Yeah. Interesting, right? I anticipate a Robo fairly shortly after this, and then Robotics Bay and Colossus. And I think the way Goblin looks at this, and maybe PBT entirely, is I just do the same thing. And it's good. It's a tough composition. The Phoenix have been good in each matchup. They make it hard on the medevacs. They can counterattack and cut off reinforcements.
That doesn't sit. Just lift. Oh, he's not going to lift. He's going to lift the SCVs. Look at that. You could lift the Viking, maybe. I guess the damage would be too slow. You can repair something that's lifted, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You sure can, like a battlecruiser, my man.
If only you could lift a battlecruiser. Wouldn't it be great if the Phoenix could just like invert upside down?
Oh, I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, yeah.
Hang on. You're saying if it gets lifted, could you repair it?
Yeah, yeah. I think you still can.
Ooh. I think you can, but that's a Nate question for sure.
Yeah. It'd be great if the Phoenix could turn upside down though and like put an air unit on the ground. So your zealots and stuff can attack it.
Thank you, Ruby. Thank you for this moment.
So this is why they bring me on, Jeff.
Here are the Phoenix, and there's a Widow Mine in there.
That is a beautiful placement of that Widow Mine right behind the gas guys. Are very difficult to spot.
You know what, though? Specifically with the Viking, it's cool. And we saw this in Game 2 as well, because the Widow Mine actually doesn't kill a Phoenix, but it does make it close. I think actually a one-shot, the one that gets hit directly by the Widow Mine itself with a Viking.
Yep.
The Viking's really cool.
Well, now you can see that Goblin is a little bit more antsy about trying to move in here, not just because of the Marines, but because he knows, okay, there's a chance that there's another Widow Mine somewhere. If he doesn't spot that out ahead of time, it could be a lot of danger. But is there Robotics Bay? We're starting to see that transition over to the Colossus once again.
And this map, it is a longer map, so a push out from uThermal will have to kind of treacherously go across a pretty long distance. And then the nice thing for our Protoss player Goblin here is you can kind of expand perpendicularly, or you can go up down if you want, which gets you further away from the Terran as well. Some maps make you expand closer to your opponent, which is easier for the push, kind of like in game number 1. But in game 3 here, uThermal's got to face this same composition, and I have to believe he doesn't reach into his book of tricks and come up with a Thor again. I don't think that's where he's going to go.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to get to that point, at least not in the initial stage of the game right now, because we already have that move out here from uThermal. He's got a couple SCVs pulled to repair those siege tanks in case they take a little bit of damage. And we end up seeing, I think Goblin should know, because he moved around with the Phoenix. He saw that there was no army back at home. He's trying to move out to catch this army, which I really like.
Yep, the further back you can push this, the more time you buy. If you add a wave or 2 of Adepts and they jump on top of Marines that are not in a bunker, this fight goes very well for the Protoss player, probably.
Ooh, already triggering the Hardened Shields. That is a nice siege tank shot for uThermal. And right before the engagement as well, the Adept's going to shade forward. The Phoenix lift up those siege tanks. The Colossus working away at the bunker instead of the Marines. That is a little bit of a mistake. Is it going to cost him?
Let's get the tank up there. The Colossus is supreme here. The bunker's finishing. Look at all the damage doing to the Marines. Now the Phoenix count is treacherously low, and they're very low in health. Huge mistake. They're actually getting over the Marines. This was a fight that I was about to say for Goblin is like a game winner, but losing every single Phoenix and now rebuilding them, I don't think it flips on its head, and I'm ready to say that it's actually Goblin that's dead, but it just should have gone better.
Yeah, usually the Phoenix are there to prevent drops, but also to try and deal with any Viking clouds that start forming for the Terran player. uThermal in game 1 didn't really go for the Viking. I mean, in any of the games so far, he hasn't really gone for the Viking cloud, and it doesn't seem like he's focused on it right now. Do you think that it will be as big of a deal if the Phoenix go down knowing that?
And that's been my problem, Ravi, because I absolutely agree with you. In game number 2, the Phoenix count got really depleted again as well, but because Thors were the answer, and he didn't just already have Vikings, it was a bit of a problem. Now, I know that the gambit here for our Terran players that if Vikings and they make Phoenix and you don't kill the Phoenix, all of a sudden 6 or 7 Colossus and a bunch of Phoenix, there's nothing that kills that. So I get it. I understand why, but he's been able to successfully hurt the Phoenix count in basically each game. But because he's not going for Vikings, he's not capitalizing.
Well, making the most out of the few Phoenix he does have, he's been able to replenish 3 of them since Phoenix produced pretty damn quickly. He's been able to push back these 2 medevacs from dropping, has a lot of his army sitting over in the main base, and nothing defending the 3rd right now. That is going to be a big problem, seeing that canceled.
And I actually love this, by the way. uThermal, I was going to say, I thought he was going to wait for the Nexus to finish. He's not. He's going to say, I'm just going to cancel that as is anyways. And here's the threat of the Phoenix, so there's no retreat for this. They're just going to stand and fight. And it looks like a bad fight for uThermal, but loading up is just worse, I promise.
Oh my god. This is a really hard commitment. I guess he's still got the 2 medevacs, so he can still pick up and get out of here.
But does he have the 2 medevacs? I mean, the Phoenix out there. He's got to be careful.
Yeah, okay. The Phoenix still at a 5 count, so it's enough to chase down those medevacs if he really wants to push the issue, kind of at least force an unload.
Well, he'll need to bring the army. I guess he's kind of worried that a drop could show up at 12 o'clock, because he's actually only on 2 bases, and the danger zone there for a Protoss. You can have a very powerful army, but if anything hits your main and you're just out of position, that's basically game when you're only on 2 bases. If you're on 3 or 4, you can take a little bit more of a loss.
Interesting. So Goblin hasn't quite been able to find all the siege tanks that are sitting on the south side. I think he's still looking for them because he sees individual Marines keep moving up north, and he's finally going to find it.
He does find it, pulls back before, well, I was just going to say before losing a Phoenix, but then he did. But this army's out on an island, and to your point, the tanks are kind of by themselves, but they're getting some shots in early, and one-way shots, the Colossus almost dies.
Yeah, that's not entirely ideal. And of course, behind all of this, remember that the 3rd base is just mining here for uThermal. He is once again in a similar situation to game number 1 without the contain, but he has that 3rd base up, mining a lot longer than Goblin, and Goblin is on a timer.
Yeah, and it's not a good one. It's not the good kind of timer either. He's going to push forward. He's got that Warp Prism with the army, which tells me that I think he wants to just get aggressive here. Picks up the tanks. There's the shade in on top.
Good split up against the Widow Mine, by the way. There was one in there that was going to do a lot of damage to the Adepts. He cleans this up without really losing too much.
Yeah. It is 57 workers of uThermal to just the 40. I mean, I actually haven't seen probes queued up on the production tab for a while, so if he takes a 3rd, it's almost at this point in time kind of like a backup plan. I have to imagine he's going to be aggressive, and we just got a shot of the main there. It's mostly depleted as well. Nice shot.
Ooh. Remember, this is all about the counterattack, like you were saying, Jeff. So any units that he kills off, not to SCVs, any units he kills off is massive.
Yep, especially a medevac full of dudes.
Oh my god, another medevac. How many medevacs are there? There are 3 or 4 still around, so it still has enough to take a fight.
He's very Marine heavy. And with the tanks dying out on the map, is that just the 1 tank? If it's just the 1 tank...
7 tanks.
Not the 1 tank, Ravi, it's 7. I like this position for uThermal, actually.
Yeah, although the siege tank's not quite covering the mineral line. Once this bunker gets knocked down, there's only one tank actually in range.
Here comes the shade forward. A little bit of a feel it out shade, cancel.
Yeah.
Missile turret in the bunkers and the Phoenix count having been reset, it's hard to see them jumping on top and successfully picking up all the tanks. He's thinking about it, though.
I like the slow moving forward of individual tanks, even using the medevac to kind of get them into position a little bit faster and kind of blocking things.
Now behind this, it's Charge finishing up. It's a 3rd Nexus, and I believe a Fleet Beacon just finished.
Ooh.
He does have 2 Stargates, so we should be seeing some Tempest. I don't think it would be Carrier. There's already a lot of Marines out. One of the things to keep your eye on, though, and I'm a little bit concerned, is that's all later stuff that Goblin's wanting to do. So he's kind of mentally canceling out of this idea that he has to win right here, but he's not upgrading a 2nd attack. He only has the 1 attack upgrade. And that's not the worst thing right now, but with 2-2 about to finish up, it's about to get really bad, Robbie. It's a 3 upgrade advantage for the Terran.
That's going to be a this is one of the matchups where upgrade advantages are the most significant of all the matchups in StarCraft. So Thor production is starting up again here. Jeff, He's got 2 of the tech labs on those factories. He can produce 2 Thors at a time.
1 or 2 Thors is kind of cool. I mean, it was 3 at a time last game, and that's pretty weird. It's actually Phoenix range off that Fleet Beacon.
He just evened up the work account almost with that run by.
Yeah. And also armor. So the Protoss is looking to get to 1-1 against a Terran again that's soon to be 2-2. So that's tough.
Is he warping in many gateway units? Because I know he's gotten a couple of these zealots now. I wonder if he is just gonna. Okay, no, he's starting up those upgrades. He's also getting up a Templar Archive, so he is gonna still really make sure he has a strong ground force.
Lots of Phoenix. The other thing I would add here, in my opinion, and maybe Goblin's gonna make me a believer, Phoenix are super great early to mid game. Later in the game, they get bad. Everything gets better upgrades. They usually outpace the Phoenix in upgrades, and he is actually getting a 2nd attack upgrade for the Phoenix, but the game gets to a very bad spot for Phoenix. There's more missile turrets. The Marines have stim. They have more upgrades. They're doing more damage. So it's kind of a weird choice for me. I don't know that this is going to work out great for Goblin.
I do like that he's still just producing more Colossus, though, just because you were pointing this out earlier. uThermal has been going so Marine heavy. There was that one game where he added in a lot of Marauders, but we're not really seeing that this game. Yeah, it's just
13,
tanks.
right? 13 tanks?
That does complicate things.
I'm going to tell you, in my mind, the way this fight goes, it's not even close for Goblin. If you're at home and you've got a weak stomach for watching Protoss get absolutely destroyed, I need you to turn away pretty soon here. Storm's good, but look how long he has to go for Storm.
Maybe there's a potential if he actually moves around, because this is a map that allows him to maybe catch this army from 3 different angles or something. But
there, we can stay on the outside. Cash me on the outside.
Is that a TV show?
Yeah. Okay. Sitcom. And the tanks are crawling forward, as you said. Storm might finish in time. How many Templar does he have?
He has 6, and they have been building up some energy, but not all of them even have Storm just yet. So I think that's what he might be waiting for.
Oh yeah, of course. The nice thing about fighting here is there's nothing being won by uThermal. So Goblin is buying a lot of time. His armor upgrade has finished. More gateways coming in. Storm will finish. He'll have it. But look at this. Look at the tanks. Like, go ahead and pick up half of them.
Oh, the Warp Prism. Thors! Get one shot off. Don't quite get the second shot. That would have killed it right there.
Going up this ramp into those tanks? Do we think that's possible?
Oh, boy.
No way.
I really agree with you on what you said earlier on, Jeff. I really would have loved to see Tempest, because imagine if he was just picking away this army the entire past 3 minutes that uThermal's been pushing across the map.
And this is a very aggressive push out from the tanks. I don't disagree, though. Absolutely. That's a Shaden. That's a move-in. We're going to have a fight. Here comes the Phoenix. They're jumping on top of the tanks and pick them up. The Adepts are gone. Here comes the Storm. Nice Storms on top of the Marines. The tanks on the high ground are holding true here. And it will be Goblin that disengages. And I will say that went a lot better than I thought it would for Goblin. And it didn't go well, but it went okay. He got the tanks on the low ground. And I think that was a little bit too much from uThermal. I think it was like 6 or 7 tanks at the front line. So they got off like 1 or 2 volleys before they were collapsed on.
Yeah, all of them were sieged up from earlier on, where I think he was trying to catch some of Goblin's units a little too far forward. There's also a bit of an Adept run by, does some minor harassment, but gets cleaned up. Keeping all the Colossus alive was really, really nice for Goblin.
Well, yeah. The thing about Colossus is that a lot of the same things that I talked about with the Phoenix, the longer the game goes, the worse the Colossus get as well. They really do not scale in the upgrade department, but also importantly the medevac department very well. Marauders being healed with 2-2 or even 3-3 upgrades against Colossus, they just fall off as it is right now. So I would have loved to have seen some kind of bigger transition. Carriers, Tempest you were talking about. Tempest Storm would be fantastic. I don't know. Disruptors are okay in these situations. Basically anything other than what he has. And I know that makes me sound like a pretty negative Nancy, but I'm worried. I don't see his game plan shaping up here.
3-3 about to finish up here for uThermal. That is going to be a tough nut to crack, as +2 weapons is on the way there for Goblin. I guess if he prolongs the game long enough, he will eventually catch up in the upgrades, but he's got to be able to survive against a round 2 that uThermal is getting very close to.
Also critical to note, we're not seeing any kind of ghosts up in that production tab, so if you think old Jeff's being a little bit too much of a negative Nancy about our Goblin here, yes, I am. But if the game does progress and Storm is allowed to just kind of continue to be the answer with 6 Marines at a time coming out, that can actually even it up. I mean, tanks are great, but if you're picking up the tanks and you're storming the Marines and you do have those 3 Colossus, that would be how I eat my words.
Okay, I love, again, the mech upgrades over here, not just for the siege tanks, but I guess also for those Thors, since he still continues to get 1 or 2 of them every so often into that army composition. But here is that move out. uThermal is about 10 supply away from being maxed out. He's got new kind of angle that he wants to attack from. Maybe going to try, instead of going for the natural or the main base, going to go over to the bottom right.
And that was a weird thing from uThermal before. I think he just thought he was just going to win straight up, and maybe again with better tank positions he would have, but he fought for nothing, right? He was pushing towards the natural, whereas typically you want to push towards the 3rd or 4th, but again, that could be a map thing as well. Talked about that earlier. The way the expansions go, it's very hard to get to those spaces. Getting
up another one of those air weapon upgrades for those Phoenixes. Still finding damage on some of these medevacs. The Colossus and the Archon's going to be able to push back those Marines. uThermal establishing a forward base. And this is kind of the funny thing, is that Goblin has taken the last non-forward base that he can take. This is the last time he can take a base that isn't just moving closer to uThermal. And we saw the whole idea for Goblin is push back uThermal. uThermal making this slow push across the map. He has less time with that now.
Yep. I believe that was Warp Prism Speed that just finished as well.
Yep.
And this army, we got a shot of the bases too. Goblin is inexpensively expanding, I will say. It's like one pylon, no stack defense. You can do that when you aggro as hard as he is with his army in the middle of the map. It's a dangerous line to walk, of course. So if anything, you know, drop starts showing up over there, it can get problematic. But
ooh, then Warp Prism, keep an eye on it, because it's got 4 Templars in it that have been in there.
Not Warp Prism, Medevac. Go ahead.
Huh?
I said Warp Prism, but Templars don't have those.
Yeah, yeah. One day.
Well, hopefully.
One day Medevacs will be able to pick up with 5 or 6 range.
Oh, the army, the army! Oh, careful!
Okay, well the Phoenix are moving around from the bottom right-hand side, but this is already the space. This is just really good army movement here from uThermal. Be able to get that position and say, okay, now I can segment off just a small number of Marines, and exactly like you said, there's no defenses there.
Yeah.
Oh, Colossus got to be careful.
And Goblin's max. I think he could have warped in like 1 Zealot or 2 there, even after losing the probe. So this is just a bit dead base, so just a handful of Marines. It's all about the big fight. Both players have a bit of a bank. Obviously, it's uThermal with the bigger bank and in the better economic situation. But if somehow Goblin can win the fight in a big way, he can snowball. That's the kind of army he's got. But those tanks, man, how do you effectively, how do you do it?
It seemed like it was a little bit of a stalemate for a bit, as Goblin didn't want to push through that choke point, but neither did uThermal. But uThermal finally squeezes his way through, has killed off that bottom right-hand base.
He can keep going.
This is, I mean, even got a drop over here at this new base. He can try and segment off some more of the units. The probe's going to be transferring in as well.
uThermal's on top. A lot of probes dying there. He's getting position with his tanks. It's been slow going, but he's finally about to kind of tighten the noose. And yes, the Phoenix will clean this up, but it's done already some damage, and uThermal has one position again. Tank's going to rain hellfire down on top of this army. The original 3 Colossus, by the way, still there. Scouting Medevac pushes forward.
Yeah, there's actually not that much anti-air there when the all the Phoenix are on the north side. Wow, a lot of Phoenix went down there. Those Marines.
What I'm talking about. These late game Marines, my friend. Those are 3/3 Marines.
He's going to drop the Thor there because he knows that the Phoenix are the only thing reacting to drops. So Thor doesn't really care about the Phoenix. That's so cute.
Goblin down to 3 bases. I don't think we saw the drop on the right side of the map, which I did think happened. Probe count. What is that? It's 38. So he's got a massive army. That's the good news. But, I mean, what is he doing? He's falling back to here. Where do you go? He's maxed out, so what is he buying time for?
This is going to get very tough. He's got to go soon. Like you said, he's maxed out.
I mean, he doesn't
waiting
have
for
to.
+3 weapons? Is that it?
I guess. He's got an Immortal coming out. He's warping some Zealots, but he's taking damage.
He can't afford to lose that base. That base is actually the last real mining base. Oh. Yeah. Siege Tanks actually obliterate his own Marines, so that is a bit of a win there. Medevac.
No, it's not a win. He lost like two Phoenix and all the Zealots.
Probably.
Well, you know what? I said that too strong. Maybe it's a win.
I'm trying to be optimistic.
Maybe it's a win.
Okay, well, this
one. Marines.
Well, at this point, it looks like this base is going to go down. All the probes over here as well.
That's the Warp Prism with Templar on it.
Oh, boy.
Goblin is falling apart.
He doesn't actually have gas anymore.
He's got nothing. He's going to A-move into, how many tanks is? Show me the number.
He has 13 siege tanks.
Oh, it's only 13. It feels like 60. I'm looking at it feels like 60.
Zealots pinching in from the bottom right-hand side, but that is not going to be able to do. With a few more Zealots, he can probably win on one side, but it is going to be about trying to win on the other sides, and there's a drop in the main.
He doesn't have Phoenix to pick it up. He doesn't have a huge number of Immortals. And even if he did have Immortals, those are still Space Marines. I mean, what do you do? And here he goes. This is it. This is the final fight.
Tries to push in the Colossus on the high ground, doing some damage. Storm's actually landing on quite a few of these Marines. This is possibly the best engagement Goblin could have ever asked for, but can he win the game off of this?
The answer is no, Rick. The answer is no. He's losing his main base.
Yeah.
He is going to be depowered here in a moment. He's not actually mining. He's down to 68 supply. He actually has 0 workers, I believe that says. Does that say 0?
9.
I apologize. It's 9 workers.
It's actually a German Nien.
Nien.
And
here we go. The push. This is the game 3 push. This on ladder, you never see this push, but in game 3 of a WCS,
he got the bunker
group,
upgrade.
He's like, I got 12 zealots. Let's do this.
He's got the bunker upgrade. He can fit 6 Marines in that bunker.
Yeah, it's a big bunker, huh? GG.
That's all he needs. uThermal, favorite in the group, got taken to the edge, especially with that game number 2. But game number 3, pulls on through, shuts down Goblin, and nets himself a victory. GG.
And this is a game where I feel like hopefully it's like a footnote in Goblin's great 2019. Amazing composition, great idea, fantastic Phoenix play, but it felt like he got stumped. Once uThermal was like, I make a bunch of tanks and I'm going to slow push you, Goblin, all he did was kept buying time, and that was okay, but it felt like he was never buying time for something. It was not like
transition point.
Triple Immortal or Tempest to come out, anything. It was just more of what he had, which was already being answered for. And then that's where the mistakes start happening. So like a Warp Prism with 4 Templar dying. Of course he's not going to stand by that and be like, that was a great decision. No, it's not, but he's already on the back foot, and that's when that stuff happens.
Yeah, it was at the point that we started seeing those kind of mistakes, it was already starting to become like this foregone conclusion a little bit. But I do have to say exactly what you were saying before. He did a great job with that early game, a great job with the mid game. The Phoenix control was really stellar. I wouldn't doubt if a lot of his opponents that he was facing that weren't the best player in Europe were just losing at that point with that first big push out. But uThermal being able to hold on, kind of showing the Goblin not feeling as comfortable about finding those transition points. So well done.
Nice series.
Well, uThermal is going to be moving on to the winners match now. We have our second match coming on up. That's going to be with me and Nate casting Bly versus Rail, and that's going to be a pretty interesting and entertaining one as well. Both these players a little bit weird. They like to play their own sort of style of StarCraft in their own little ways, and the winner of that's going to face off versus uThermal. Loser is going to face off versus Goblin. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll see you guys in a little bit with more WCS Winter.